And speaking of Atlanta and Georgia politics and things, I wanted to talk about Stacey Abrams because in about, what month is July right now? In 4 months, less than 4 months now, Stacey Abrams will be going up against Brian Kemp again for a governor's election showdown. And they'll be battling. This time, Kemp is not in charge of the election, so he won't be able to purge a lot of voters off the registration list this time. But man, this is about to be an interesting one because Stacey Abrams seems to have dialed it back from some of the more radical things she was saying before, and now she's full blown, pretty much in line with what the Democrats, federal Democrats, are into. She's pretty much doing what she has to do to win now, and it's still going to be difficult because Georgia is still a state where there are more Republicans that vote than Democrats. I would say there's probably more Republicans, period, than Democrats in this state. So even though Stacey Abrams did a lot with the Fair Vote initiative, she still has a major mountain to climb. I want to give y'all some quick info about the vote. So in the last election in 2018, where Stacey Abrams went against Brian Kemp won that election by 55,000 votes, which is a very slim margin for 3.9 million total voters, right? And another interesting thing about her losing by 55,000 votes, before the election even happened, Stacey Abrams called foul because before that last election, Brian Kemp was Secretary of State. And in Georgia, the Secretary of State is in charge of the elections. He's in charge of all the rules for elections. He's in charge of who can stay registered. He's in charge of where they can vote, when they can vote, all of it. He was in charge of it. Before the election even happened, he purged 53,000 voters from the active registration list. For her to lose by 55,000, even though that's still 2,000 short, she called it out beforehand. She didn't wait to see if she would win or lose to say, hey, he just did something foul. Literally before the election, she said, they just took 50,000+ people off the active registration thing. And look, she lost by 50,000. 1.9 million vote, 1.97 million to 1.92 million Stacey Abrams. She lost that. But I think an interesting point is, or thing to discuss, the primaries last time. The primary, Brian Kemp went against Casey Cagle, and Brian Kemp had 400,000 votes to Casey Cagle's 178,000. On the Democratic side, Stacey Abrams went against Stacey Evans, right? Stacey Abrams had 424,000 votes, and Stacey Evans had 130,000 votes. So in the primary, Stacey Abrams got more total votes than Brian Kemp. But we know things changed in the election, so another 2 million people, or almost 3 million people showed up to the general election that didn't show up in the primaries. I brought that up to show you again what the primaries look like this year, right? And I'm bringing up the primaries because that gives you a good look at how active and paying attention or how aware the Democratic voters are, or the Democratic or Republican voters are. If people are voting in high numbers in the primaries, that means they are on alert for that year's elections. So let me give it to y'all real quick. Stacey Abrams, this is the first time I ever seen this for an election at this level, for a governor election. Stacey Abrams on the Democratic side had no opponents. She got 100% of the votes. Not even a write-in candidate didn't even get a vote. She got 100% of the Democratic vote in the primary. 727,000 votes. So let's think about that real quick. That's 300,000 more primary votes, which is the election that happens in May. That's 300,000 more votes than people that voted in the primary, Democratic primary in 2018. That's a large jump, and that's mainly due to the work that she's been doing over the last 4 years to get people voting and registered to vote and active in the election process. However, the same is shown on the Republican side. There are 5 people who received enough votes for it to even show up on the rolls. Brian Kemp won the the Republican primary. And with them splitting votes this many ways, he still got 886,000 votes. So with him only getting 73% of the Republican primary vote, he got 160,000 more votes than Stacey Abrams did in the primary. David Perdue got 21% of the vote in the primary. He got 261,000. Candace Taylor, she got 41,000. Catherine Davis, who's a black woman that ran on the Republican side, she got 9,000 votes. And Tom Williams got 3,200 votes. So let me show you what I'm trying to say here. On the Republican primary ticket this year, 1.2 million people voted. So that shows me, versus the Democratic side were just 727,000. So 500 more thousand people voted in the primaries on the Republican side than on the Democrat side. Now, what does that say? That says that Republicans are on high alert this year for the election. Being that I'm not a Republican and I've never been a Republican, I don't know what efforts are being used to galvanize people and get voters riled up and pumped up. I'm not sure. I don't know what they're using. They must be using some social media site somewhere. I don't see it on Facebook. I don't really see it on YouTube. I don't see it on Instagram. I don't see it on Twitter. I don't know what they're using. But they are getting Republicans pumped up to vote. I don't know if this many voters has ever voted in a primary in Georgia ever. 1.2 million people voted. And just in the last primary 2018, only 500,000 people voted. So they almost tripled their primary votes in 4 years. So when Stacey Abrams went and started promoting voter registration and, hey, get out there and vote and all this, it did help her. It helped her a lot. But it also pumped up the Republicans as well to say, hey, y'all need to get out there. You'll see what they're out there doing. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do X, Y, Z. And we see how many Republicans actually came out to vote. I don't really know. And I don't know how Stacey Abrams is going to win this election if the Republicans are this aware and alert when it comes to voting this year in the governor's election. On top of that, Stacey Abrams' base is mainly black people of Georgia. Black people don't make up that large of a chunk of Georgia. So then you have the liberal, democratic, white people also who are voting for Stacey Abrams in large numbers, but there are not that many of them. There's not a whole lot of liberal, democratic, white people in Georgia. So with black people currently feeling the way we feel as a whole about the Democratic Party, it's a good chance a significant portion of black voters will also choose Brian Kemp in his Republican ways. There's a good chance. I'm not saying that it'll be 50-50 with the black vote, but it will be, I don't know if it'll be 90% for Stacey Abrams and 10% for Brian Kemp. You could see a large chunk of black voters vote for Brian Kemp. I think this would be her best chance of ever winning. But with all the new voters in Georgia, I'm just looking at these numbers. I don't see it. It's not even close. Actually, in last election, in the primaries, Stacey Abrams got more total votes than Brian Kemp did in the primaries. So with him getting this many more votes than her, and the Republicans voting this much higher at a higher number than Democrats, I don't see it, man. She might get cooked this trip, y'all. That's tough, man. This was her best chance, I think. And I mean, unless she continues attempting to become governor just forever, I don't know, man. This was her best shot.